And I slept, and dreamed again, and saw the same two pilgrims going down the mountains along the highway towards the city. Now, a little below these mountains, on the left hand, lies the country of Conceit, from which country there comes into the way in which the pilgrims walked, a little crooked lane. Here, therefore, they met with a very brisk lad that came out of that country, and his name was Ignorance. So Christian asked him from what parts he came, and whither he was going. Sir, Ignorance said, I was born in the country that lies off there, a little on the left hand, and I am going to the celestial city. But how do you think to get in at the gate? For you may find some difficulty there, said Christian. As other good people do, said he. But what have you to show at that gate, that may cause that the gate should be opened to you? Christian asked. I know my Lord's will, and I have been good. I pay every man his own. I pray, fast, pay tithes, and give alms, and have left my country for whither I am going, said Ignorance. But you came not in at the wicket gate that is at the head of this way, you came in hither through that same crooked lane, and therefore, I fear, however you may think of yourself, when the reckoning day shall come, you wilt have laid to your charge that you art a thief and a robber, instead of getting admittance into the city, said Christian. Gentlemen, you be utter strangers to me, I know you not, be content to follow the religion of your country, and I will follow the religion of mine. I hope all will be well. And as for the gate that you talk of, all the world knows that that is a great way off of our country. I cannot think that any man in all our parts does so much as know the way to it, nor need they matter whether they do or no, since we have, as you see, a fine pleasant green lane, that comes down from our country, the next way into the way, replied Ignorance. When Christian saw that the man was wise in his own conceit, he said to Hopeful, whisperingly, There is more hope of a fool than of him. And said, Moreover, when he that is a fool walks by the way, his wisdom fails him, and he says to everyone that he is a fool. What, shall we talk further with him, or outgo him at present, and so leave him to think of what he has heard already, and then stop again for him afterwards, and see if by degrees we can do any good to him? Then said Hopeful, Let Ignorance a little while now muse on what is said, and let him not refuse good counsel to embrace, lest he remain still ignorant of what's the chiefest gain. God says, Those that no understanding have, although he made them he will not save. He further added, It is not good, I think, to say all to him at once. Let us pass him by, if you will, and talk to him anon, even as he is able to bear it. So they both went on, and Ignorance he came after. Now when they had passed him a little way, they entered into a very dark lane, where they met a man whom 7 devils had bound with 7 strong cords, and were carrying off him back to the door that they saw on the side of the hill. Now good Christian began to tremble, and so did Hopeful his companion. Yet as the devils led away the man, Christian looked to see if he knew him, and he thought it might be one turn away, that dwelt in the town of apostasy. But he did not perfectly see his face, for he did hang his head like a thief that is found. But being once past, Hopeful looked after him, and espied on his back a paper with this inscription, Wanton Professor, and Damnable Apostate. Then said Christian to his fellow, Now I call to remembrance that which was told me of a thing that happened to a good man hereabout. The name of the man was Little Faith, but a good man, and he dwelt in the town of Sincere. The thing was this. At the entering in at this passage, there comes down from Broadway Gate, a lane called Dead Man's Lane, so called because of the murders that are commonly done there, and this Little Faith going on pilgrimage, as we do now, chanced to sit down there, and slept. Now there happened, at that time, to come down the lane from Broadway Gate, 3 sturdy rogues, and their names were Faintheart, Mistrust, and Guilt, 3 brothers, and they seeing Little Faith where he was, came galloping up with speed. Now the good man was just awake from his sleep, and was getting up to go on his journey. So they came up all to him, and with threatening language bid him stand. At this, Little Faith looked as white as a cloud, and had neither power to fight nor fly. Then said Faintheart, Deliver thy purse. But he making no haste to do it, for he was loath to lose his money, Mistrust ran up to him, and thrusting his hand into his pocket, pulled out thence a bag of silver. Then he cried out, thieves, thieves! With that, Guilt, with the great club that was in his hand, struck Little Faith on the head, and with that blow felled him flat to the ground, where he lay bleeding as one that would bleed to death. All this while the thieves stood by. But, at last, they hearing that some were upon the road, and fearing lest it should be one great grace, that dwells in the city of good confidence, they betook themselves to their heels, and left this good man to shift for himself. Now, after a while, Little Faith came to himself, and getting up, made shift to scrabble on his way. This was the story. But did they take from him all that ever he had? Hopeful asked. No, the place where his jewels were they never ransacked, so those he kept still. But, as I was told, the good man was much afflicted for his loss, for the thieves got most of his spending money. That which they got not, as I said, were jewels. Also he had a little odd money left, but scarce enough to bring him to his journey's end. Nay, if I were not misinformed, he was forced to beg as he went, to keep himself alive, for his jewels he might not sell. But beg, and do what he could, he went, as we say, with many a hungry belly the most part of the rest of the way, Christian said. But is it not a wonder they got not from him his certificate, by which he was to receive his admittance at the celestial gate? Hopeful asked. It is a wonder, but they got not that, though they missed it not through any good cunning of his, for he, being dismayed with their coming upon him, had neither power nor skill to hide anything. So it was more by good providence than by his endeavor that they missed that good thing, Christian said. But it must be a comfort to him that they got not this jewel from him, said Hopeful. It might have been great comfort to him, had he used it as he should, but they that told me the story said that he made but little use of it all the rest of the way because of the dismay that he had in his money being taken. Indeed, he forgot it a great part of the rest of his journey, and besides, when at any time it came into his mind and he began to be comforted, then would fresh thoughts of his loss come again upon him. And those thoughts would swallow up all, said Christian. Alas, poor man! This could not but be a great grief to him, Hopeful said. Grief! Aye, a grief indeed. Would it not have been so to any of us, had we been used as he, to be robbed, and wounded too, and that in a strange place, as he was? It is a wonder he did not die with grief, poor heart. I was told that he scattered almost all the rest of the way with nothing but doleful and bitter complaints, telling also to all that overtook him, or that he overtook in the way as he went, where he was robbed, and how, who they were that did it, and what he lost, how he was wounded, and that he hardly escaped with his life, Christian said. But it is a wonder that his necessity did not cause the selling or pawning some of his jewels, that he might have relieved himself in his journey, Hopeful said. You talk like one whose head is the shell to this very day, for what should he pawn them, or to whom should he sell them? In all that country where he was robbed, his jewels were not accounted of, nor did he want that relief which could from thence be administered to him. Besides, had his jewels been missing at the gate of the celestial city, he had, and that he knew well enough, been excluded from an inheritance there. And that would have been worse to him than the appearance and villainy of 10,000 thieves, said Christian. Why are you so tart, my brother? Asked Hopeful. Esau sold his birthright, and that for a mess of pottage, and that birthright was his greatest jewel, and if he, why might not Little Faith do so too? Esau did sell his birthright indeed, said Christian. And so do many besides, and by so doing exclude themselves from the chief blessing, as also that caitiff did. But you must put a difference betwixt Esau and Little Faith, and also betwixt their estates. Esau's birthright was typical, but Little Faith's jewels were not so. Esau's belly was his god, but Little Faith's belly was not so. Esau's want lay in his fleshly appetite, Little Faith's did not so. Besides, Esau could see no further than to the fulfilling of his lusts. Behold, I am at the point to die, said he, and what profit shall this birthright do me? But Little Faith, though it was his lot to have but a little faith, was by his little faith kept from such extravagances, and made to see and prize his jewels more than to sell them, as Esau did his birthright. You read not anywhere that Esau had faith, no, not so much as a little. Therefore no marvel if, where the flesh only bears sway, as it will in that man where no faith is to resist, if he sells his birthright, and his soul and all, and that to the devil of hell, for it is with such, as it is with the ass, who in her occasions cannot be turned away. When their minds are set upon their lusts, they will have them whatever they cost. But little Faith was of another temper. His mind was on things divine. His livelihood was upon things that were spiritual, and from above. Therefore, to what end should he that is of such a temper sell his jewels, had there been any that would have bought them, to fill his mind with empty things? Will a man give a penny to fill his belly with hay? Or can you persuade the turtle-dove to live upon carrion like the crow? Tough faithless ones can, for carnal lusts, pawn, or mortgage, or sell what they have, and themselves outright to boot, yet they that have faith, saving faith, though but a little of it, cannot do so. Here, therefore, my brother, is thy mistake. I acknowledge it, said Hopeful. But yet your severe reflection had almost made me angry. Why? Asked Christian. I did but compare you to some of the birds that are of the brisker sort, who will run to and fro in untrodden paths, with the shell upon their heads. But pass by that, and consider the matter under debate, and all shall be well betwixt you and me. But, Christian, these three fellows, I am persuaded in my heart, are but a company of cowards. Would they have run else, think you, as they did, at the noise of one that was coming on the road? Why did not little Faith pluck up a greater heart? He might, methinks, have stood one brush with them, and have yielded when there had been no remedy, said Hopeful. That they are cowards, many have said, but few have found it so in the time of trial, said Christian. As for a great heart, little Faith had none, and I perceive by you, my brother, had you been the man concerned, you are but for a brush, and then to yield. And verily, since this is the height of your stomach, now they are at a distance from us, should they appear to you as they did to him, they might put you to second thoughts. But consider again, they are but journeyman thieves, they serve under the king of the bottomless pit, who, if need be, will come in to their aid himself, and his voice is as the roaring of a lion. I myself have been engaged as this little Faith was, and I found it a terrible thing. These three villains set upon me, and at beginning, like a Christian, to resist, they gave but a call, and in came their master. I would, as the saying is, have given my life for a penny, but that, as God would have it, I was clothed with armor of proof. Aye, and yet though I was so harnessed, I found it hard work to quit myself like a man. No man can grasp the struggles in that trial but he that has been in that battle himself. Well, but they ran, you see, when they did but suppose that one great grace was in the way, said Hopeful. True, said Christian. They have often fled, both they and their master, when great grace had but appeared, and no marvel, for he is the king's champion. But I trow you will put some difference betwixt little Faith and the king's champion. All the king's subjects are not his champions, nor can they, when tried, do such feats of war as he. Is it meet to think that a little child should handle Goliath as David did? Or that there should be the strength of an ox and a wren? Some are strong, some are weak, some have great faith, some have little. This man was one of the weak, and therefore he went to the wall. I would it had been great grace for their sakes, said Hopeful. If it had been, he might have had his hands full, said Christian. For I must tell you, that though great grace is excellent good at his weapons, and has, and can, so long as he keeps them at sword's point, do well enough with them, yet if they get within him, even faint heart, mistrust, or the other, it shall go hard but they will throw up his heels. And when a man is down, you know, what can he do? Whoso looks well upon great grace's face shall see those scars and cuts there, that shall easily give demonstration of what I say. Yea, once I heard that he should say, and that when he was in the combat, we despaired even of life. How did these sturdy rogues and their fellows make David groan, mourn, and roar? Yea, Heman and Hezekiah too, though champions in their day, were forced to bestir them, when by these assaulted, and yet, notwithstanding, they had their coats soundly brushed by them. Peter, upon a time, would go try what he could do, but though some do say of him that he is the prince of the apostles, they handled him so that they made him at last afraid of a girl. Besides, their king is at their whistle. He is never out of hearing, and if at any time they be put to the worst, he, if possible, comes in to help them, and of him it is said, the sword of him that lays at him cannot hold, the spear, the dart, nor the habergeon, he esteems iron as straw, and brass as rotten wood. The arrow cannot make him flee, sling stones are turned with him into stubble. Darts are counted as stubble, he laughs at the shaking of a spear. What can a man do in this case? It is true, if a man could, at every turn, have Job's horse, and had skill and courage to ride him, he might do notable things. For his neck is clothed with thunder, he will not be afraid of the grasshopper. The glory of his nostrils is terrible. He paws in the valley, and rejoices in his strength. He goes on to meet the armed men. He mocks at fear, and is not afraid, neither turns he back from the sword. The quiver rattles against him, the glittering spear, and the shield. He swallows the ground with fierceness and rage, neither believe he that it is the sound of the trumpet. He says among the trumpets, Ha ha! And he smells the battle afar off, the thunder of the captains, and the shouting. But for such footmen as you and I are, let us never desire to meet with an enemy, nor vaunt as if we could do better, when we hear of others that they have been toiled, nor be tickled at the thoughts of our own manhood, for such commonly come by the worst when tried. Witness Peter, of whom I made mention before. He would swagger, aye, he would, as his vain mind prompted him to say, do better, and stand more for his master than all men. But who so foiled, and run down by these villains as he? When, therefore, we hear that such robberies are done on the king's highway, two things become us to do. 1. To go out harnessed, and to be sure to take a shield with us, for it was for want of that he that laid so lustily at Leviathan could not make him yield. For, indeed, if that be wanting, he fears us not at all. Therefore he that had skill had said, Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. 2. It is good, also, that we desire of the king a convoy, yea, that he will go with us himself. This made David rejoice when in the valley of the shadow of death, and Moses was rather for dying where he stood, than to go one step without his God. O my brother, if he will but go along with us, what need we be afraid of 10,000s that shall set themselves against us? But without him, the proud helpers fall under the slain. I, for my part, have been in the fray before now, and though, through the goodness of him that is best, I am, as you see, alive, yet I cannot boast of my manhood. Glad shall I be, if I meet with no more such brutes, though, I fear, we are not got beyond all danger. However, since the lion and the bear have not as yet devoured me, I hope God will also deliver us from the next uncircumcised Philistine. Then sang Christian. Poor little Faith! Hast been among the thieves? Wast robbed? Remember this, whoso believes, and gets more faith, shall then a victor be. Over 10,000, else scarce over 3.